So I have a very special game to share with you guys today. We're playing the Missouri in 2023. It's been a very long time since I've actually played this ship. The goal was to find the new map Seychelles. It is a tier 9 and below map, and I just wanted to start out with Missouri for whatever reason. And we got really good matchmaker. Unfortunately, I still haven't played the new map, but I hope to do that soon, and maybe then that will be a video. But for now, we have possibly my best Missouri game ever. And of course, we have to appreciate the matchmaker for giving us this game, since I don't think this would be possible if there were more tier 9s, or if we had a carrier, for example, in the game. But since we are top tier, and we're against so many tier 7s, let's see what a top tier battleship can really do when you push it aggressively, especially when you have a radar. That's what we're doing here. We notice that there's a Gneisenau here and the Renown 44 here. That means there is not a tier 9 battleship. The Izumo is not here. The North Carolina is not here. That gives me a ton of confidence to push in very aggressively and use my radar. It's really the unique thing about Missouri, one of the only battleships to get a radar. There is the tier 8, I forget what it's even called. It's a Russian battleship, Borodino, I think? But that ship gives up a lot of its battleship characteristics to gain a radar, where Missouri is basically just an Iowa with a radar, and that is awesome. Although you don't quite have the improved heal that the Iowa does have these days. Unfortunately, we're going to take one torpedo here, but to do this much damage to the Benson, as well as that Gneisenau, I will gladly take that trade. You'll notice the secondaries are actually doing a little bit of work here. They're actually going to be awesome in this game. This is this new build that I've been trying out on some of the secondary battleships. You probably saw it on the one take for the Preußen, but I'm even running it here on the Missouri. Unfortunately, we do end up missing the Atlanta, but 4 skill points on your commander to get manual secondaries is all I'm doing here. And I'll talk about the build a little bit in the future, but it actually works pretty well on this ship. We're going to wait for the Renown 44 to turn broadside. And of course, Missouri, with the accuracy upgrade, it's a pretty good ship. But we're going to try and take him out. The speed here is allowing us to flank really well. Unfortunately, no Citadel there, but the speed of the Missouri is going to let us flank here very nicely. Our radar is going to allow us to deal with that Benson if he's coming out wide to torp us. I feel relatively confident here. Renown has torpedoes, of course, that we do have to worry about. But we're going to talk about island usage. That's a really big deal here. That is one of the most difficult things to do, is how do you position your battleship in an aggressive way without dying? Island cover is incredibly important. We're going to be overmatching the Renown and hopefully taking him out over time. The Benson gets spotted, so we don't actually have to worry about torp, so I'm going to slow down here and make use of this island. It's not covering me from the Renown. I'm allowing the Renown to shoot me. It also allows me to shoot him. The idea here is that with our acceleration, we can dodge his torpedoes. There's no way for him to torp us here. If we see him turning broadside to use his torpedoes, we know they're on the way, and we just accelerate out of the way. That's a really nice way to use islands here. It's also potentially saving us from Benson torpedoes, or if there were more people along this flank, we would be blocking some of the shell hits, I think, if they were up here on the A and B lines. But it's really important to make use of islands. And later on, you're going to see a very good use of islands towards the B cap when we go charging in and down there. First, though, we do have to take out this Renown. He turns broadside again. Notice I'm aiming right at the waterline. And the shells go into his superstructure. Sure would be a different game if the aiming system wasn't broken, I gotta say. That's very annoying, but we do have our rear turret that allows us to take him out. He turned broadside. He's definitely torping. So we use the island, and we're going to dodge those torpedoes. Unfortunately, he is able to get one last salvo into us. Had we actually had a decent salvo, we would have probably taken him out without taking that extra 8,000 damage. But that's okay. Now that we've taken out everyone on the C flank, we're going to charge down towards the B cap and try and help our team. You'll notice we're down a lot of ships here, and my team is charging in, so I have to go with them. This is a situation where I wouldn't want to charge the enemy team necessarily, but our team is charging in. Our Nagato had just died in the B cap there. We have a light cruiser that's on lower HP also charging in, and then our Mayoko is probably playing it a little safer. Our DD is at least able to stay dark most of the time, and then our submarine can always submerge. But to win this game, It's looking pretty difficult, I gotta say. So I'm pushing up here, trying to use these islands to limit the firing angles at me. If I allow the entire enemy team to shoot at me all at once, I'm gonna die very, very quickly. So even in a Missouri, a ship that's really not known to be this ultimate brawler, we're gonna do some brawling, and you can do it very, very well. We just need to use island cover appropriately. We know the Eden is behind the middle island here towards the B cap, the Azumo behind this little island here, and we know the North Carolina is coming around on the H line. So we have an opportunity here to potentially take a fight with this Azumo or the Edinburgh without having to deal with the North Carolina, and possibly even the Tirpitz if we are able to use islands well enough. Eden comes out flat broadside. It's a tough shot. We're using the minimap to aim, and unfortunately we will be getting 4 overpens there. But the Azumo pulls out flat broadside, and that prompts me to actually turn in. I don't actually want to be taking a fight with the Azumo and the Tirpitz and the Tone here. You can see we take a huge hit to our superstructure there. One of the main weaknesses of battleships with big superstructure. Just hit them at closer ranges. That Azumo did like 12k to us into our superstructure well angled. Finally, we do pick up our first citadel of the game. Very important that we hit that Azumo there. Battleships are going to miss. It happens. But at a certain point, if you're going to have a good game, you have to have a little bit of good luck and battleship salvos that are going to hit and do really, really good damage. And that's going to happen here. We are going to get lucky in a couple ways. First of all, the Kitakazi just kind of full sent it into us, allowing us to get some secondaries on him. And then we fire our 6 front guns, and we get 6 hits. Yeah, not going to happen all the time. Second way, the North Carolina just doesn't kill us there, somehow. So, close quarters expert there, allowing us to pick up the Kitakazi, and we get a Confederate with Halsey now. The goal here is to keep the Tirpitz behind the island to our right, the North Carolina behind the island to our left, and that'll give us some time to deal with this Atlanta, who does decide to give us enough broadside where we get his Citadel and the Tone. Unfortunately, we drift out and actually are broadside to this North Carolina. However, the pressure from our team has actually forced the NC to turn around, and we're actually going to be a little bit all right here. We managed to dodge a lot of the torpedoes. There's our high caliber finally. And then I pop my radar just to see where the rest of the enemy team is. We find the submarine behind us, and more importantly, the Tirpitz is charging around that island. Making plays around islands, it's very important to know what your enemy is doing. If the Tirpitz were waiting on the corner here for me with torpedoes, I wouldn't want to push. But since he's pushing around, I want to push around this island, try and limit the amount of time I'm taking a 2v1 or 3v1 engagement against me. We managed to finally take out the Tone there, again getting a nice Citadel, overmatching through him. And now we need to deal with this Tirpitz while the North Carolina is on the opposite side of us behind an island. It's all about island usage here. We did manage to pick up our Kraken, which is really nice. Although to win this game, we still got to get a few kills. Fortunately, the Tirpitz doesn't actually get a decent hit into us, and we don't actually do too much to him there. I was really hoping to see a little bit more damage there. Secondaries on the Tirpitz, of course. They're doing all right damage. We're going to look at the damage at the end. I was kind of pleasantly surprised there. We will manage to dodge the submarine torps. And here, again, the Missouri just has to kill this Eden here if we have any hope of winning this game. And that's one of the issues with pushing in. You often find yourself in situations where you're totally dependent on RNG to give you some kills to actually make a push work out. And it does here. It really does here. We didn't have the best RNG all game, but it did come through when it mattered. And just before we die, we get another salvo out on the Tirpitz and take him out as well. So that is 7 kills in a brawling Missouri. 230,000 damage. And just enough to help our team win. A very unlikely win. I was very much expecting to lose this game, but we got it somehow. So Missouri is still pretty good in 2023. And wow, just look at those credits. 3 million credits or near enough is pretty amazing. 7 kills, though, is absolutely ridiculous. 3.2 thousand base damage or base XP or near enough. That's a pretty ridiculous amount. Again, we were mainly fighting against tier 7s and tier 8s there, so we're expected to do well. And our secondaries do 30,000 damage plus another 10,000 from fires. pretty insane, I gotta say, for just 4 skill points. As for the build, as I mentioned, I am actually running some secondary upgrades. Just the one. Manual secondary battery aiming. I think this one is good enough that it's worth picking up even in a Missouri for the odd situation where you are able to brawl, and they can clearly do some good damage. If you don't have a Missouri, which I'm sure is a pretty rare ship these days, this will work on Iowa as well. I think that the Iowa might even do a little bit better thanks to its improved healing. Taking concealment, of course, is great because we actually have a really decent concealment here. 12.7 kilometers on such a big battleship at tier 9. Pretty decent. Fire prevention, of course. Basic survivability helps us live a lot longer and gives us some maneuverability options in our upgrade slot, which we'll talk about in a second. Adrenaline rush is always good. They can grease the gears here for those opportunities where we're brawling it out. It's very nice to have turrets that turn a little faster. Even taking gun feeder for some of those situations where I want to be using HE. Didn't exactly do it in this game, but it does happen. The secondaries do have 8.8 kilometer range. Only a 6-second reload, and the base accuracy is really, really bad. So that's the interesting part, is it actually did a lot of secondary damage, even though we don't actually have any sort of improved accuracy or reload on the secondaries on this ship. I am taking secondary battery upgrade here, but that's because I don't actually have an aiming systems upgrade on the 3rd slot in the American battleships. I will be taking aiming systems on every other battleship line, wherever I can, and you can see we do that here on the American line, getting 11%, but it's at the cost of no reload mod, and I think that is a worthwhile trade. Notice here we're not taking damage control system, we'll take prop mod instead, because we're taking 2 out of the 3, right? We have the option to take a fire control system here, a fire control system here, and the fire control system on our commander. And I always want 2 out of the 3. I find that gets the best value without having diminishing returns, because they're all percentage based. So I go for 2 out of the 3, and since we did the commander and the flag, that gives us the opportunity to take propulsion mod, which makes us a little bit more maneuverable, which is very, very nice for potentially dodging torpedoes or even incoming fire at longer ranges. I mentioned the Iowa, of course, because that is what this ship is based on, and you may be thinking that, oh, we had the radar there, and yes, I think at the beginning of the game, I certainly used the radar in a way that the Iowa wouldn't be able to get information. But in the mid-game there, especially while I was brawling, the spotter plane would easily be able to see over the island to see where the Tirpitz is. And of course, we saw that the Kitakaze actually rushed out to get spotted himself. We weren't even using our radar on him. So I think Iowa would have done all right in this game as well. But if you got the Missouri, that radar is pretty useful. And I certainly had a lot of fun with this game. I can't remember a match of World of Warships where I had more fun, at least recently. That was a really, really good time to play, and I just had to share it with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed, had fun watching that one, and maybe even learned a little bit on how to brawl it out a little bit more. Island usage is key here. And I should actually mention real quick why we're not taking the heal upgrade. That's what we're giving up. We're giving up extra healing on the commander to gain this secondary upgrade. The idea is, in 2023, the damage output is so extreme these days that it's very, very difficult to use all 5 of your heals. Typically, the game is either over in a blowout and you've died before you even got to your 5th heal, or you lived the whole time and never got shot at. And then for those really rare games like this one where we do manage to push in, notice we only barely got to our 4th heal before we died. A lot of times when you do full send it in to go after a brawl or something like that, you're typically not getting to your 5th heal anyway. And before you go into that brawl and full send it into a brawling situation, well, you probably shouldn't be actively losing HP. You should be trying to preserve your HP for that opportunity to push, is the idea. So 4 heals, I think, is more than enough for me. Even on ships like a Massachusetts and an Ohio with the fast cooldown, I'm even not taking it there. This change in philosophy, or just the change in my perspective on how I want to be brawling, it's not so much about sustained brawls, it's about picking my opportunity correctly and then going in only then, and then saving my HP until I have that opportunity. So that's kind of the thought process. It will likely change in the future, but for now, this is the idea behind a lot of Battleship builds, and more specifically the brawling ones. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.